Okay, I want to start this off by saying thanks to my buddy Angel Ganev for allowing me to use his awesome artwork as a reference, and I'll link his YouTube channel in the description below and at the end of this video. Now, if you missed last week's episode, let me explain that the timer on the screen is for easy navigation of the real-time footage, which comes with the package from my Gumroad store link below. Now, I apologise it's taking up half the screen. I didn't mean to make it small and put it in the corner, but I accidentally rendered out close to 20 hours of footage with it like that, and I didn't fancy doing it again, so I will try and remember for next week. Now, in the package, as well as an option to buy the model, there will be a long unedited time lapse, and the idea is for you to skim through that, and when you find something you want a closer look at, make a note of the time code and then go find it in the real time footage. Now, what I should do at this point is give you a bunch of reasons as to why I think you should buy it, but I have to prerequisite this by saying there is a lot of noodling in this one, and I am talking hours and hours. If you watch the timer on this edited time lapse, you will see huge chunks have been edited out, because I would spend like 2 to 3 hours just going round and round in circles and not really improving it at all. As happens every now and again, I got completely lost in the sculpts. I got too close to it. And not only that, I did a lot of trial and error with new ideas and different ways of doing things, and there was a lot of error. So just be aware that a lot of the footage is quite repetitive and redundant. However, on the live streams, a few of you have said you actually like when I do apologise if you can. I do apologise about the noise in the background. That's the baby monitor. What you can hear is my son clearly talking to himself. I mean, it's alright, he's not crying. I don't need to go to him right now. Yeah, he's mental. He's 2. He's 2 years old and he already knows how to hold a crowd. I'm not even joking. Well, he's clearly done something wrong if he's saying, "Uh-oh, sorry." Maybe I should go and check on him. What was I saying? That was it. In the live streams, a lot of you have been saying that when I run into trouble, you actually like to watch them to see how I get out of it. So maybe there is a silver lining. However, like I said, there is a lot of backwards and forwards, so just be aware of that. But what I will say is that it's these sculpts that really reveal the areas you need to work on the most, so whilst they're painful, they're also really beneficial. One thing I would say to watch out for are those times when you look at an area of your sculpt and you know something's not quite right, but it looks nearly right, so you just kind of leave it. Well, I don't know if that's just me, but I do kind of do that sometimes. Or I think that doesn't look right, but I'll come back to that in a bit. And I've come to realise that if you notice a problem, you should really fix it there and then, because it's just going to cause more trouble down the line. Like I say, I don't know if that's just me, but if it's just like a tiny little mistake, I tend to, I guess, think it's going to fix itself. I don't know. But the way I approach faces, and the best way I can think of describing this, is kind of like when you're watching an IPI render come together. So it starts off really fuzzy, and then as it progresses, it adds more and more detail into the image, and that's kind of what I'm doing with sculpting. And if you don't have that sculpt working at the start of a render, then you can be sure it's not going to be right at the end of the render. So what I'm trying to say is these tiny little mistakes gradually grow into bigger mistakes as you progress with your sculpt. So as soon as you see a problem, fix it. Even though it's been a pretty tough sculpt to get through, I have to say I am quite happy with the result. Though I've got this horrible feeling, and this has happened to me before, when I've gotten this close to a sculpt, I kind of become blind to my mistakes, and I haven't really had any professional feedback on this. So I've got this feeling that there's a massive error in there somewhere, and I just can't see it. Well, I'm sure I'll find out soon enough. You YouTube guys are very honest with your feedback. One of the new things I did try with this sculpt is probably for the first time I didn't do a 3-point lighting setup, and I definitely don't think I've ever not included a rim light, but I think it kind of works without it. I was quite happy. I didn't actually try it with a rim light, but that's because I just wanted to try one without. for a change. Like I say, I was trying a lot of new things in this one. Now, I have been looking for inspiration for my next model, so if you've got any ideas then feel free to drop them in the comments. I've been considering doing an anime character, but I haven't really seen many of them. I mean, I watched Pokemon when I was younger, and I'm rewatching it at the moment with the little one. That's kind of why I did Misty last week actually. And I've seen Sword Art Online as well, and I really like that, but I haven't really seen any others. So if you've got any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. Now what I will say, and I know this is going to be controversial amongst hardcore anime viewers, but I kinda prefer up-to-date artwork, so a series that's relatively recent, because I'm watching Pokemon at the minute, and even that is starting to look a little bit old. And I realise I'm probably going to get ripped for saying that, but whatever, I like it to look pretty, alright. I did watch Rick and Morty for the first time yesterday, and I have to say that was pretty funny. It did feel like a pilot while I was watching it, and it probably was, but that didn't really take away from it. It was a good watch. I'm not sure my girlfriend liked it very much though. Okay, so like last week, I did ask Instagram to give me some messages so that I could fill the airtime answering those questions, and I've got to say, Instagram, you really delivered this week. I have got several weeks worth of things to talk about now, so thanks. So with that in mind, I might not get to answering your question today, but hopefully I will in the upcoming weeks. Now, I got this question and I thought this was a great question. It came in 3 parts. It says, what were you thinking at the time? Why did you rework an area? I'd like to hear the thought process in time-lapse commentary. So I think what they're trying to ask me is, what am I thinking about when I'm sculpting? And I thought this was an interesting question because actually it took me a lot of thinking. And if I'm completely honest, I'm not 100% sure. So there's some things that I think about that I'm aware of, particularly when I'm working from a concept like this and I'm trying to get the sculpt to look like the concept. So I'm looking at contours, shadows and highlights and trying to match proportions in my head. That's one part of what I'm doing, but I'm not always doing that while I'm sculpting. There's another part that's quite a bit harder to explain, but it's to do with looking for appeal. And I think it's really difficult to describe what this thing is. I guess the best way I could describe it is that I'm looking for a feeling, a sort of feeling that it works. I mean, it's not like I can go through and measure everything to match it up exactly with the drawing, because the perspective is going to be slightly different and it only gives you one perspective. It's not like you can just put the sculpt underneath the image and then match up all the proportions, although you will see me doing that. I do that to get a sort of rough ballpark of where they're supposed to be, but you'll notice that after I've done that, the sculpt looks a mess because, like I say, you only get one perspective from the drawing and you need to sort out every other infinite number of perspectives, like from all angles, to make sure it looks right from all angles. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's really hard to articulate what I'm actually thinking about at this point, because I'm trying to see a feeling, and I hope this doesn't sound a bit wishy-washy. It's not meant to, but I think it's essentially this muscle memory that you develop with experience. So I kind of feel like there's 2 halves to getting better at art. There's the theory and the practical, essentially. So the theory is the going to your books, learning about anatomy, learning about proportions, learning about perspective, the fundamentals essentially. And then your practical is, well, the practice obviously. And it's the practice that's difficult to explain, because as the person who asked me this question probably already knows, because I've seen their artwork and it's very good. But I think it's this experience that's difficult to really put into words, as is evidenced by me forming these sentences right now. Now, someone else has said, how do you approach going off of a concept reference model with or without perspective? Well, that's interesting because it kind of follows on from what I've just been saying about overlaying the concept over the sculpt. And it also kind of goes along with what I was saying about experience as well, because you do generally only get one perspective unless you get a turnaround from a 2D artist. But when you're pulling concepts from artists online, you generally don't get that. So how do you know what it's supposed to look like on other sides of the model? And I realised this wasn't the original question. The question was, do I use perspective or orthographic? And the answer is that I use both. But I kind of feel like that's besides the point. It's like I was just saying, you can't rely on overlaying the image and then moving the contours around to try and match it, because it's not going to look right from other angles. And the way I essentially approach this is to save out the view of the sculpt that matches the concept. So I'll show the timeline, I'll set a keyframe, and then I can just flick to that saved view. I've got a tutorial on this somewhere, I'll put it in the comments below if you want to see that. Let me know. Remind me, because I will forget. So I've got my view saved, and I know that when it's at that view, it needs to look like the concept. So what I'll do is I'll look around all around the model, trying to get it to look right from all angles, and then I'll check it from that view and see how it's looking. And with experience, you start to learn which contours you need to pull in which direction in order to more accurately match the reference. Because when you first start, you usually have at least a little bit of experience with 2D. And if you're anything like me, you try to take a similar approach with 3D. So you try and get everything looking right from a 2D view. But that's not how it works. Like I've said it a few times now, you need to get it looking right from all angles. Anyway, I'm kind of waffling now, but that's kind of how I approach trying to match up to a reference. I will say that I don't feel like I quite hit the reference with this piece, to be honest, but because it was quite a tough one, I actually didn't mind by the end. I thought, do you know what? It looks nice, or at least it looks nice to me, and it'll do. I'm fed up of looking at this now. Anyway, I'm sure you're bored of hearing my voice now, so I'm going to go into some music. And don't forget, you can get all the models and the footage from my Gumroad store, linked in the description below. And shoot me some ideas for future characters in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Little by little you wear me down. Thank you.